Do you want to start or do you want me to start?
Well, you start.
I have a comment to
Okay, go.
make. So we were talking yesterday,
Yeah.
and we had I don't know how to explain this without giving away the thing we were talking about. So let me think for a sec.
Like giving it away to me?
No, to people listening because it was about something. So we were talking about the idea of being elite
Oh, yeah,
versus
yeah.
being generally good at something. So a lot of people, this is actually something so interesting because when I was a kid, my dad used to always emphasize to me the importance of being well-rounded as a person.
Okay.
And why it's better to be a well-rounded kid and whatever. And I learned as I got older that it depends what you're
Yeah.
talking about. So in terms of life in general, I think that's true. It's good to be a well-rounded person. But if you want to be elite at something, you have to sacrifice other things. So I don't know if your best mindset when you go into whatever domain you're trying to become an expert in, is it good to be well-rounded? Like, I feel like you have to sacrifice other aspects of your life to a certain extent in order to be the best of the best in one domain.
Yeah, I think we talked about it before. Like, I agree with you. Like, I think it's good to be well-rounded as far as being able to have a conversation. Again, it depends, but have a conversation, be fit, be smart, work, like social, emotional, being well-rounded that way. But, and then if you're going to just have a job, I don't want to say just have a job, but if you're going to be like your average job where you work for someone, then it doesn't have to be real specific. Then I think being well-rounded might serve you well. But yeah, if you're going to be doing something like a little bit different, well-rounded doesn't really work.
Yeah,
Laser focused does.
In a general life sense.
Yeah, laser focused does.
It's better to be well-rounded for life success generally if you want to take all things considered.
I don't even know.
I think so. Like all things considered, if you want to have a successful life in all areas, it's best to be a generalist where you're pretty good at everything, but you're not necessarily the best at anything because
Okay, do you become less interesting though?
I don't think so.
No, just you answered the question without actually thinking about it.
No, I did.
Well, how did you think that fast?
Because I've thought of this question a lot.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I know. So because it's not necessary that are you less interesting because if you're more interesting but only in one way, does that make you more interesting overall? Not really. You know what I mean?
This isn't always this depends thing.
Yeah. So okay, so like if you're a let's say you're a scientist, if you're a physicist person, you work at NASA, that's really interesting to talk to you about. But as soon as you take one step outside of NASA,
but I think then this is my point. But then when you're that laser focused, let's say about NASA, and you're a rocket scientist, then your realm of intelligence and knowledge expands beyond just.
Well, true, but now you're getting more well-rounded. See. So
yeah,
if you're so I think.
Yeah. Okay. So like if we'll stick to hockey here. If
Yep.
I'm a power play specialist and that's all or I'm a coach and all I care about is coaching, and I have nothing else to talk about. Yeah, I'm a pretty boring guy.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways,
I guess I was looking at well-rounded in a different way.
Yeah, well, the context we were talking about it yesterday was in terms of training. So you get a lot of these places that do workouts and fitness classes and all this kind of stuff. And most of them will end up being a generalist if you go to one of these places, you know? So they train football players and basketball players and hockey players and soccer players and whatever. And the head trainers normally that are there, unless you're lucky and you find someone who's hyper specific with one thing, normally they are capable of training athletes. Like they're generalists. We train athletic. That's how we train here. But then you can get more specific if you get someone who, if you're a hockey player, you have a trainer who played the game at a very high level, trained at a very high level, and they are educated to a very high level. And that person is going to be able to hyper specify your training for your sport. So now they've turned into a specialist. So
yeah, if they just strictly do that one sport.
And I'm not necessarily saying one is more important than the other, but it's funny because you go.
Well, I was going to say because we had someone comment about our place live to one of our, was it students? Yeah. It came. And then it's so funny because they said, if you want to get elite, you should come here, not here, but there. And we were laughing because, well, if you're elite, then why are you so spread out?
Yeah, you can't be
and
elite.
why is your age gap from university students to 6 years old?
Yeah.
It's not actually elite. That's general, as you said.
That's right. And it's not that there's anything wrong
Who
with
cares?
that.
Yeah, I
But
don't
if,
give a
but if
shit.
you want to be elite, then you have to be hyper specific, which means you have to sacrifice some other areas of knowledge in order to only be focused on that. Otherwise, there's someone else that is just focusing on that, and that's why they're the specialist.
Yeah.
That's why when you go to the family doctor, they refer you to the specialist of the thing you're having a problem with because they know more, because they just do that.
They work
and that's
on
it, right?
ears, nose, and throat.
Yeah. So I was thinking about that yesterday because it came up.
Yeah.
Before I go to you, just want to talk again about the memberships online, because we had a couple more that hopped on in the last couple days, and the questions, man, they keep pouring in. I had one really nice one the other day. Somebody was asking about they hurt their hips, and then they were saying that they feel sluggish on the ice, and they're wondering if it's because of their hip injury or if it's something else. And it was a really, how we talked about last week, a really individual question to them, like something that they need to work on. So one like caveat I want to throw out to people is when we give you advice, obviously we're just giving you advice from our experience. And then especially people ask me about injury stuff, or increasingly, and I'm not a physiotherapist or a doctor or anything. So normally the caveat that when I give advice is I say, assuming you're fully cleared to play and you don't have any residual effects from your injury, because if that's outside my lane. So if you're looking for answers to questions on that stuff, that's not me. I'm not going to give you advice on that. Yeah. But in terms of coming back and how to deal with things like, feeling sluggish on the ice, we can give you advice on that. But it was great because individual question, just like we were talking about last week, which is awesome. So anything on that?
No, I love that we're getting so many questions. It's great.
And from kids, which is
sick. I like that. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's great.
Actually, we had some kids ask some good questions to you yesterday.
Yeah.
After the class and stuff. No, I love that. And as far as the injury stuff go, we can't diagnose that stuff. There's too many things, and plus we're not even close to being qualified to answer that stuff. All we can say is, if you have a soreness, where it might come from, and what I would do if it was me or if it was my son, what I would do.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times, sometimes you think you have an injury or something sore, but it's actually just through some mobility, you could do a lot of work through it.
Yeah.
But that's only my opinion. That's what I would tell my son.
Yeah. And that's why you have to have.
But you typically, when you're hurt. Typically.
Yeah. Well,
if it lingers and it's like when there's a movement that you just,
yeah,
it's pain and you just cannot do something. You can try a little bit of mobility, but that's when you probably go see someone. I digress.
No, yeah, but that's why it's important to have multiple sources that you can go to, because if you really, really like our podcast and like how we talk and all that stuff, that doesn't mean we know everything about everything.
God,
and
no.
You should always listen to everything we say. That's not what that means at all.
No.
So there's that. Last thing is program's going to be up. I'm going to have it in line with when I started in April. So it'll be up for you guys either in a week, maybe 2 weeks. I'm just finishing that up. And then that'll be up for you guys. Anyone who wants to join remotely to work out with us through the summer, you guys can do that. So that'll be up on the site. And that is all I have. To you, sir.
All right. To me?
Yep.
Okay. So what I wanted to talk about was over the weekend, I went to watch my son play up in Guelph.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, I loved it. And we brought our little grandbaby with us, and the whole family went. We had a really nice weekend. Got to see Charlie a little bit outside of just at the rink and stuff, so it was nice. Went to the Billett's house one night after a youth hockey game that their son plays.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to see our Charlie's billet brother play hockey. It was nice. Good little hockey player. He's coming down here for the summer, by the way.
Oh, is he? Cool.
Yeah, for like maybe a week or two or whatever.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah, great kid. He's really excited. Keeps asking. That's all he did. So they opened up their Christmas presents finally, because we were finally down there to have
family Christmas.
Yeah, so they have the two kids have new PowerTech sweatshirts and toques, and Brett, Charlie's billet, said that he will not take that off now. Guaranteed. So he's been sending me pictures. That's all he wears now.
That's it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but what I wanted to talk about this was we had some time to go and watch Patrick, the 11-year-old or 12-year-old son, play hockey. So they're playing against Niagara Falls, and decent little hockey game. But this goes back to a podcast we had about like parents just like, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? So we were behind the net, whoever's net it was, doesn't matter. And just around the glass, on the other side of the glass to my right was one of the parents, big guy.
On your team?
Well, I didn't have a team. I was just watching.
Yeah, yeah,
So
on
let's
your
say my
brother's
team.
team?
If I was
Yeah, yeah.
cheering for some, I was
Right.
cheering for Patrick. So
Right.
yeah, on that team, going nuts.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the whole game yelling, and I don't think he was going nuts like in a bad way. I think he's just like cheering like extremely hard, and maybe because I don't really pay attention. But all I know is every couple of minutes I'd go like, "Wow, you're nuts! You're nuts! Like you're going crazy." But people get so offended by it, right? And I guess rightly so. So I whatever, the game's over, and someone says, "Oh, I got to check out what's going on here," because there was like becoming a fight. So I guess there's a little bit of animosity between the coach on the other team, and I guess he calls out some players, and he's another pretty big guy. He was actually a very, very big guy.
The other team's coach is
Yeah.
calling out players.
Yeah, calls out players.
11-year-olds.
I'm not going to say the words that he's
Yeah,
used,
yeah.
but So I'm like, what the hell?
Goof.
So after the game, like there's a scrum, and they're yelling the coach and this other guy, and he said, "You made Mike." The coach said, "You made one of our kids cry and stuff." I'm like, okay, whatever. So they're having this big fight, and it's crazy. So it gets broken up and stuff, and you think, okay, it's over. Like, separate yourselves, all right, whatever. So as the kids are walking out, this coach is along the wall, and kids are walking out with a couple parents, and he starts up again. I'm like, what are you doing? My point is, this hockey environment, I don't understand why people get so nuts, like absolutely nuts. Like so I'll give you another example. So we had, when Charlie played in Major Bantam, he, one of the players, we had a couple mouthpieces on our team, dads. So the one was getting, like, he gets into it. He was telling me one day, because he was bugging the coach on the other team, he was over the glass yelling and screaming and giving it to the other team's coach. So he told me how he thought it was funny and it's getting escalated and stuff. So I said, I love it. Like, I love the humor of it, because I don't understand where a dad feels like this is appropriate. An adult.
Yeah, funny in a laughing at it way, not
laughing at you. Like, this is hilarious. Like, I'm laughing at the behavior of an adult male at a 14-year-old hockey game. So sure enough, that night, he egged on a coach, followed him out to the parking lot, and then got his ass kicked. I wasn't around.
Yeah.
Got beaten. So at the end result was he couldn't watch his son for the rest of the year. And that was like months.
Yeah.
And his son saw part of it. Oh, that's smart. Right?
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yeah.
So the other side of that is that you'd never know when someone's going to snap back and actually hurt you.
Yeah.
Right? And it's just not appropriate. You got kids, you got, like, it's not a bar either. It's just like, why?
Yeah, for what? Man, I remember when in minor hockey for me, all the time there was something going on, whether you could hear someone's mom screaming in the crowd, or there's a fight in the lobby after the game or whatever. We had one, I remember, we were in Hamilton, and we were playing the Hamilton Bulldogs, and they had a kid on their team that was a stud. He was real good. He was drafted like 4th overall or something, like really good player. And a guy on our team, end of the game, we were down 5-1, 6-1, whatever. And this kid tried to do like a between the legs kind of move with like a minute to go. And we had one of these big meathead defensemen on our team. And the kid on our team dropped his stick, grabbed the kid by the hips, and threw him into the glass.
Which, by the way, has nothing to do with the parents.
Nothing to do with the parents.
The parents have nothing to say about that.
So we had a line brawl because of that, and the goalies came and fought each other.
Yeah.
So that was that. We go out after the game, and I'm just finishing getting undressed. Some of the guys are already out, and one of our guys comes running back in the room and says, "There's a fight in the lobby right now. Like, you guys gotta get out here." So everyone like hurries to finish getting changed, whatever. We run out, and there's the parents are nose to nose,
of course,
grabbing each other. There's a mom that has her cell phone up saying she's going to call the cops and all this kind of stuff. She actually ended up calling the cops. And I'm thinking, I'm like, what the heck happened? So apparently the kid's dad that got tossed was going after the kid that tossed him in the lobby. After the kid? So the kid on our team that grabbed their stud player and tossed him, the kid's dad was going after the guy on our team in the lobby, like starting yelling at him and like chirping him and whatever. So then, of course, our dads, some of the dads on our team,
you can't pick on a kid.
Yeah. So they ended up getting in a fight. There was a full-on fight. We had one of our players who is like not the best person ever, punched one of their dads in the face in the lobby, and that started like a dad fight in the lobby. So we got dads fighting dads,
Oh,
kids fighting
man.
parents, players fighting players. It was like, what the hell is going on? And it was because Joe Dad had to start yapping at a kid
Had a
in
kid.
the lobby. And it's like, man, I know that you think your kid's the best player in the whole world. The kid doesn't play hockey anymore, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's like, how about we just tone it down a little bit?
Yeah.
In what world is that appropriate to do? Like, let the kids do what they're going to do
incredible.
on the ice, man. Like,
There's something about the arena and their kids. Like we just talked about it last week's podcast about the mother kind of telling my wife that we're not supposed to sit here and all that stuff, and it's like,
what are you talking about?
Okay,
I would actually be curious if people, because hockey is the domain. Like, I played baseball too growing up.
Yeah.
I played AAA baseball, so equivalent competitiveness level. It was nowhere near. And maybe I stopped playing baseball when I was like 13. So maybe as I would have got older, maybe it would get more aggressive or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I would be curious to hear if anyone has other sports. I'm sure similar things happen. But the consistency with which it happens in hockey is unbelievable. Because it happens right from house league 3-on-3 tournament all the way up to draft year.
Yeah.
Toronto Marlies tournament games.
It just looks like Charlie's pulled up some crazy dads.
Yeah, I know.
We just laugh, but it's like no one's looking at it and going, "Wow, that's a tough guy." You look like a complete fool.
Yeah, you still see the one where the guy breaks.
Yeah.
Way to go, Paul.
So proud of himself.
So funny.
Yeah, it's amazing. So that's something I just don't get it, don't understand. I just if I have a suggestion is just stand as far away from everybody as you can. Just watch the game, keep the booth shut.
Yeah.
And don't say anything.
I know.
It's just a kid's game, man.
Sorry, and just one more thing. We've said this before, but just a reminder to the parents, especially as the kids get older and hockey gets more serious and more competitive, people watch the parents too. Like we were talking about it.
Yeah, I was telling you the other day about the one guy.
Yeah, and I was telling you when I was at the 07 game,
Yeah.
I'm watching the parents to see who's going nuts.
Yeah.
And then we talk about it, and then we talk to whoever calls about which players and whatever.
Well,
and,
so funny, eh? I don't know if this will change anything, but anyways, I was talking to one of the New Jersey scouts the other day, and we were talking about a player that plays in Europe, and he goes, the dad's been banned from the arenas. It's because the kid's drafter. He's like top 10 in the NHL draft, most likely, maybe earlier. And he goes, the dad's a complete whack job. Kicked out of the rinks in Europe. Come on. Like,
so it's an unnecessary red flag now for the kid.
Yeah.
Like you're costing your kid because we talk about this stuff. Like it ends up sounding so cliche sometimes when you talk to kids and you're saying the messages that people always say, like you never know who's looking and all this kind of stuff, but it's actually true, especially now that I'm starting to get into this kind of situation with you where I can hear the conversations and I'm on the phone and I'm talking to the people that actually ask the questions. They ask, like, what are their parents like?
My God, all the time.
All this, they always are asking, what are the parents like? Because that's like a huge.
The only way that it doesn't matter is if you're just that good.
That's right. Well, that's always the caveat too.
That's always the caveat. Yeah. The second thing I had was last night's session before we get into the meat of today. So this is another reminder for players. Like, man. So wrapped up a session of skill work last night for the kind of like the season, and I've had there's 2 kids out there last night that I've had several. Anyways, over the last 8 weeks, I've been addressing their lack of attention, lack of detail, and like not listening, half effort stuff. And I'm getting older now, so I've actually got more patience than I used to, believe it or not. It's at the point now, like if you actually don't care, like I just don't want you out anymore, but you paid, so we'll get you through this, and I'm going to help you with whatever I can. But when you start not paying attention and stuff, it's like, okay, I don't have time for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right, because I think that you're just here to take the ice, to get the ice, and not really care.
Right.
So, anyways, last night I went and showed a drill, and I always explain why, right? So I needed them to do A, B, and C very, very clearly. One was a positional thing, get here quick. Actually, first one was a tactical thing, or whatever the thing is. It's a skill thing, like do it this way exactly. Okay. And I explained the reason why. The next thing was positional thing, like get there as hard as you can, because at the next level, or doesn't even matter, you do it really quick. You're in. And I explained to a guy that I'm working with in the OHL that's been texting me a lot and sending me some clips. And I said, well, if you do this a lot quicker, you're going to be in open space more. So I explained that to them. So open space and move hard, and I show them where. So there's basically 3 things. And I took the time, and all the kids are like that, and I could see those 2 just looking around like this is like we just do the drill, right? So as soon as I'm done, it was one of the kids' turn, and he did it slow. He did it slow, didn't get in the right position, and so I said, "What did I just say?" Like I stopped the drill. I said, "What did I just say?" He goes, I don't know." I go, how would you not know? I said it 5 seconds ago. He goes, "Oh, hard." I said, "Yeah. So did you skate hard?" He goes, "No." I go, "Why?" He goes, "I don't know." Okay. I said, "Where are you supposed to be instead of there?" So basically, I was showing like in an offensive zone. If you're basically in the middle of the ice, in the middle of the slot, you're never going to get a pass. So I showed him how to be on a strong side, a little bit higher, so you have time. So he goes, "I don't know." I said, "But I just said it very clearly." He goes, "I don't know." I said, "All right,
Yeah.
do it your way, like
Yeah.
But at the end of the skate, let's get pucks. And these guys are always like in between drills. They're shooting pucks. They just will not pick up a puck, whatever. It's just part of. To me, it's just part of being a leader.
Yeah.
So at the end of the practice, let's get pucks up, guys. You got 30 seconds to do it before the Zamboni comes on. These 2 are shooting pucks. So I instead of addressing it, it's my last session. I don't care. I told the guys that are here, I said, "See those 2 guys?" I said, "That's not who you want to be." And they go, "Yeah, no kidding. Like all practice every time." I go, "Yeah, this is how it is. What happens is, as a coach, you have so much time to time and patience to deal with, maybe straightening out an attitude or straightening out a body language or trying to understand them maybe even or whatever, and maybe talk to them.
Yep,
Give them,
that's
but
right.
there's only so much you can do. Now
That's it.
it's like, don't care if you come back. And one of them is actually pretty good, but you're going nowhere, son. Zero, and that's the thing. So players and I don't care what level you're at, understand the hierarchy on the ice and understand the respect for coaching and stuff. And if you want respect back, you have to give some. And they basically, I wouldn't say I disrespect them, but I don't have time for them anymore.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to even show them how to be better because it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, we say that all the time,
Yeah.
right? We'll care as much as you care.
Yeah.
That's always what happens. And you get a kid that shows a little bit or is asking good questions or is trying to get better, whatever, you will go to the nth degree.
Even if he's not that good.
Even if he's not that good. Like we had a meeting the other night about our summer stuff, and we had a kid that comes in here that came on in front of however many people were in this meeting, parents and players, and asked a couple questions about the workouts over Zoom, where everyone gets to hear his voice, and like that takes some balls to have to do that.
Absolutely.
And that's just another plus for that kid, and he's like that all the time. He's dialed in when he comes in here. Is he the best player on their team? No, but he's a kid that actually gives effort every time, and that might end up being a difference maker for him later on. So it's not about who's the best right now. It never ends up being who's the best right now.
That's right.
That's not what we care about at all as trainers or coaches, and it's not just us. That's what any coach.
Yeah.
Any coach. If you're a kid that's just checked out, mails it in, and doesn't pay attention, there's very little time that's going to be invested in you, which is too bad, especially for the one guy, because he, like you said, he's a pretty good player. Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
Pretty good. He's pretty good.
Yeah, that rope
not
is going to
really,
run out.
Really good.
Yeah.
So pretty good's not good enough to get a free. What is it? Free
pass.
Free pass.
Yeah. Yeah, and he won't.
He's just no.
And we don't want him around. That's the other thing too.
And then you heard there was one of the GMs called me the other day about a player, and I said, "Well, this is what you got. Like, kid's kind of dumb.
Yeah,
like he doesn't get it, and I think he pretends and stuff." Okay, good to know. How's the parents? I said, they're good. They're good people. Like they're good people, but I said there's that gap. So they asked me the questions. So when this kid will get a call, I will get a call about him by a couple people, and they'll say, like, how is he? And I'm gonna say he's not bad, but the gap is because I have to be honest.
That's right.
I can't put my reputation on the line and say, yeah, take him. He's great. I can't say it.
Yep.
So I don't think he works hard. I don't think he listens. I don't think he wants to get better. I think he's okay.
Yeah.
And I think it's a project. Okay. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
All I need to know.
And that's exactly what happens, man. That is literally.
Thanks for being honest. That's what I get all the time. Thanks for being honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I'll take that kid. I'll take a kid with a little bit less. No, that's not true. I was gonna say a little bit less talent and really promote him. No, that's not true. I'll be honest. I'll just be honest. Yes, he's limited, but right. I'll say limited, but works his butt off. That might not change their opinion on his hockey value, but if I say the hard work, like the one we were talking about blocking shots last week, when I throw that out, I'll say like he actually likes it, and I think that's worth a look. At least in the late rounds.
Yeah. Well, I've heard you have these conversations, and that's exactly what you do. You'll say, yeah, he's okay, but
there's always
a plus. There's a but either way.
Yeah.
There's always a but in the positive, or there's a but in the negative. So you'll say, yeah, he's pretty good, but this, and this, there might be something there, like might be worth a second look.
That's right.
And people will be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Or you say, yeah, pretty good, but pain in the ass, doesn't listen, doesn't seem like he cares, bad attitude, bad body language, not sure exactly if he wants to be a player or not.
Dad's mental.
Yeah, dad's mental, yeah.
Dad will be a problem for you.
That's right. And people listen to that. That's why they make the calls, man.
Yeah.
That is why they make the calls. So it's not a promoting thing. You're not promoting. You're just answering the question that's being asked.
Honest.
There's no favors, man.
Yeah.
There's no favors. It's just answering the question. That's what happens. So that's a good story there to leave with for the kids.
Yeah. So we're getting into the meat of today is you were having a conversation with one of our players in the OHL asking you some questions, right? Or maybe you're just having a conversation.
Tee it up, or do you want to just go?
You go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I was talking to a couple guys that we have in the OHL last week. We were doing like a FaceTime catch up, and I was just kind of reminiscing about when I used to play and how hard it can be to understand your coach. So I want to talk about that a bit today. Is trying to understand what your coach is thinking or what their philosophies are or whatever, which I'm not saying you're going to understand what they're thinking or whatever by the end of this, but it'll give you an idea of some of the things, try to like get you outside of yourself to see things kind of in a bigger picture rather than just from your perspective. So I was talking to a couple of our guys last week, and then another guy that you're talking to right now, who's having a hard time. I was just remembering the mental swings of when things are good and when things are bad, and not understanding or not getting answers or whatever. You can't tell what your coach wants or what you're doing wrong or those kind of things. So I wanted to just go through some of the common questions a bit, but also just kind of the mentality in general of what coaches are thinking and some of the considerations they have to make and some of the things that maybe you're not thinking of as a player, because you always think of what's best for you. So as me on this team, what do I need? What do I need to progress and develop and whatever?
Yeah.
But your coach has 15, 18, 20, 25, 27 guys that he's working into a frame for himself. He has his own plan. He has his own goals and agenda and all that kind of stuff. So I just wanted to run through, especially from your perspective, because you've coached and played and all that kind of stuff, getting your thoughts on that topic just in general.
So common things that I just wrote down, a few things that we discussed that a lot of the kids ask. And now there's going to be a difference in answers or maybe even questions, maybe not the questions, but answers if you're playing youth hockey compared to junior or pro. But kind of one and the same.
Yeah,
there could be different answers. And then we're going to do that. But like, here's an example. Kid might be on a good line or a bad line. It doesn't matter. But why is a coach always mixing up the lines? Like, why can't we just play together for a long period of time, right? You got your three guys, your two D pairings. Why do you always have to mix them up? Okay, so there's one. Why? And parents will look at this too, right? Like you hear parents say that they're always mixing the lines up. I go, well, yeah, that's what you do. Why do you keep the power play together? It's not working. Like they've had 3 games that haven't scored a goal. Why do they keep them together? Right? Mm-hmm. Well, okay, so we're going to address that in a little bit. But those are questions people say. Like if I went out there, I could probably score a goal. Okay. Why does a coach say things to me that I don't think he means? Right? You're going to get better. You're going to get more ice, or just keep working. Like those kind of things. Like why does he keep saying that? Why doesn't he just be honest with me? That's a good question though. One more we put down there is why does certain guys keep getting opportunities all the time? Like why? Like why don't they give someone else an opportunity? Because we would obviously have some success at it, or give us a try.
At least give us a chance.
Yeah.
Why isn't he getting a chance?
Yeah. So those are 4 we put down. We could come up with others after, but you get the idea. Is you ask questions and it doesn't make sense to you a lot of times as a player.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about these questions is, especially now that I'm out and looking back and now dealing with kids going through the same thing I went through, it's always the same questions. It's always the same questions, and it's always the same disconnect between the coaches and the players and the parents, because the parents ask the same questions too. It's almost like questions for parents or players. So it's always the same disconnect. It's always the same questions. So the reason I wanted to do this topic because I was like, that's actually really interesting how it's always the same problem. It doesn't matter what team you're on, what age you are, whatever. It's always the same things that people are talking about. So I'm hoping the goal of this is to try to bridge the gap a little bit and make people try to see things outside of their own little window when they're watching, and maybe see more from the coach's perspective. So we're gonna be talking to the players and parents kind of as a coach, more or less. Like if we were the coach, this might be why we're doing some of the things we're doing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So for those questions, I just wrote down a couple things. It's very easy to watch a game and be critical of a coach and his decisions. So parents watch a game with, what's the coach doing? Like you hear that when things are going well, you hear a little bit less, but what is the coach doing? Like, why did he do this? Why did he do this? Players said that all the time. Like, what's he doing? Like, I could do that, or this line should be out, or whatever. And it's very critical when you have no skin in the game to sit back and make decisions. And you'll hear that a lot of times in the NHL, OHL, when people are assistant coaches or assistant GMs that become GMs, or assistant coaches that become head coaches. It's a whole different level. Like, it's easy to say, if you're my head coach, to say, well, I think we should do this and this. And if it fails, you got to answer to the press. You got to answer to the boss. You're supposed to know. You're the one that makes the final decision. A lot easier for me to make a decision where my neck's not really on the line. Yep, so that's one thing. Would you have something to add to that?
No, okay. Keep going.
Most parents and players process what is happening for their own benefit. They're looking at what's best for me, or they see it through their own eyes. So when we see someone getting more ice than your son or yourself, whoever you're looking at it, you always look at it as not poor me, but I could do that. Why don't I get the opportunities? Yeah. And we're always being focused on us, whereas the coach is looking at on that given game, looking at making decisions for in junior and pro, it's 21 guys. In minor hockey, it's 18 or 16. So you got to make a decision for a whole lot of other people. So we're not just solely focused, or coach is not solely focused on how you feel about today's game, Eric. I'm just here to make you the best player and make all the decisions to make you happy. So I just said that based on 15 to 22 players. Here's an interesting part that I was thinking about is many players and parents, and players included, do not see the big picture that maybe the coach sees. Okay. Maybe it's so my wife would ask that sometimes. How come Charlie didn't get on the power play or when he was youth, right? Why does he get penalty kill? I go, I don't know. Or why he missed a shift? Maybe that only happened a couple times. And I go, maybe he was a mouthpiece. The parents don't see that, right? Maybe the coach said something, he didn't do it, or maybe the coach sent him out to do something this way in an important part of the game, or maybe early in the season, and this is a chance to solidify that. Oh, you listened to me, and maybe it wasn't that, but he did something not the way the coach wanted to. So now you don't get that opportunity again. Well, parents don't see that. They only watch their son working hard, or maybe he carried the puck and got a really nice goal or something, but it was a selfish way of doing it. And it wasn't within the system, and it was totally the way opposite of what the coach asked for. And it's like, no, sit down if you're going to do it. You think you're going to do it your way. So body language, it's like all these different things, or a little positional thing or technical thing where parents see it's always supposed to be, like if they see the offense, but they don't see that he didn't chip the puck out properly. And it leads to, keeping the puck in your zone for too long. Mm-hmm. It's happened 3 times. Now it's your time you need to learn your lesson. Parents don't see those little things, or flamingoing a shot instead of blocking it. And these are like probably extreme technical stuff, but these are things that parents don't recognize. Yeah. Typically, right? Well, and players can say the same thing. Yeah, but I scored.
Well, this is actually a big thing for me, the scoring a goal thing, because a lot of times, like when you're on a team, especially in minor hockey or in junior, actually, it doesn't matter. If you score a goal, that doesn't make you a goal scorer. Like if you score 1 goal, that doesn't make you a goal scorer, right? So if you're someone whose role is to be a third or fourth line player and you go score a goal, that doesn't automatically mean you get boosted in the lineup now to be on the goal scoring line, right? So if you have a great game and you're all of a sudden creating some offense when normally you don't do that, it'd be easy to think like, well, how come I'm still not on the power play, or how come I'm not getting this chance? I just scored 2 goals yesterday and whatever. And a lot of it ends up being short-term, near-term thinking, because if you're not the guy that's on the team for that reason, then I still have my other guy that plays right wing just like you, but he is the guy that's more skilled or can make better plays more consistently, and I'm going to keep that guy there because that's his job.
Yep.
So it's not always I did more offense, I should get more opportunity kind of thing, and I think that's an easy way to or easy framework to fall into when you're mom and dad or a kid. It's like, well, he had a great game, he should be getting more opportunity.
Yeah.
He should be on the power play, he should be or at least give him a chance.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's just that's not the way it is, because your coach, he has his guys that are supposed to be doing that. And you don't just reinvent the wheel because one kid had a good game or whatever, And like you said, it's different if you're in youth hockey versus playing junior and pro. But that's generally the framework at any level. Is I got certain guys that are good for this, I got certain guys that are good for this, and that's kind of, there's not a whole lot of change between those roles for that year. If that is fair to say. I don't know if you agree or.
No, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
I agree.
So what did you do when you were coaching? Let's use Belltire as an example, because they were a minor hockey
youth
team.
hockey. Yeah.
So what was your, in terms of, let's say, in addressing some of these questions? So if you're a kid that, I know you said you had a team of superstars, so everybody wanted to be the go-to guy.
Pain
but
in the ass.
Yeah, but what was your philosophy in terms of, let's say, roles on the team? So like if you had a kid that was maybe a grinder that had a really good offensive game or whatever, like how did you think about those types of things?
It was kind of what you said. Like here's the thing. Like so on the team that I coached, I had like a couple guys that are pros in youth hockey, a couple guys that are pros, a bunch of guys that had scholarships, and a bunch of guys that played in the OHL. So, and the funny thing is, I had one of my third line guys get a full ride scholarship to a D1 school.
Yeah,
but he understood and he had good parents. So it's a good question that you just asked, because I've never really thought of when I was doing this, thinking in that frame. So we had 2 lines of what you would call like high-end players. So I had, and 6D that were good, but like it kind of sorted itself out. Like not everyone could be the first line. So I actually had 2 power plays, 2 power play units, and some guys hardly ever saw a power play. Hardly ever. And I don't know if that's the fairest thing to do, but you got to look at the situation that particular team was in the States. I was getting paid, and they wanted to win. Like this is like that. I discussed the philosophy. It was about winning, right? But was it? Because now we're talking about kids that are actually really good players that are going somewhere. Mm-hmm. So you have a different level of parent, and they have a legit. To be honest with you, some have a legit reason to be into it, because one of them was drafted 3rd round in the NHL. One played at the USA. A couple played at the USA national team. Like, these are good players.
Yep.
So they want the best for their kids. I understand that. So a lot of the decisions sometimes as a coach, no matter, I don't care how tough you are, like how stern you can be, when your top 3 players aren't happy in that situation, they can just leave, and then you don't have them anymore. So you do have to massage those egos, and more importantly, the parents' egos, because the kids actually can understand. If they understood me, but as soon as they got in that car, it's a different ballgame. Right. Dad's not happy that he didn't get 2 minutes on the power play.
Yeah.
Why are you sending this guy? Like, you have these conversations, and you can't just say shut up all the time. You don't know what you're talking about. You have to talk through it.
Okay, so sorry, do you have more? Because I'm gonna
go ahead. Go ahead.
So let's switch it off of maybe your particular situation. Then let's say you're in Ontario playing, where guys can't just leave or whatever, right? So if you're in Ontario and that's not the case, then how does that change? How would that have changed maybe your behavior towards the team? That's the first thing. Yeah. And then we'll answer that one, and then I'll do my second part. Go ahead.
Okay, so when you don't have the threat of people leaving, and you get what you get, then you can coach it a little bit more sternly. But then my thing as a coach is going to be more communicative.
Right.
And I know that some people are not going to be happy, because it is what it is.
Right.
So I would communicate exactly how I feel about things, about
Yeah.
This is why I'm putting here. And one of the parents who's great, his son played at Harvard. He asked me the one day, he goes, how come you won't put him on the power play?
This was going to be my second
Yeah.
question to you.
This
exact story.
Yeah, how come you don't put him on the power play? And I said, well, the thing is, if I put him on the power play, do you notice when there's a little bit of pressure in the offensive zone, puck comes to the blue line to him, he fumbles the puck a lot. And what's actually happening to him, it's exposing a weakness. So he's a big, he was 6'4", he was really good, and he was physical. Moved the puck, blocked shots, and he had a great shot. I said, but if I put him on the point on the power play, what's going to happen is he's going to expose his weakness, fumbling the puck. He's going to show a little bit of panic under pressure. I said, that's not his game. And he goes, yeah, I never really thought of that. I said, I mean, so if you want a scholarship and you want him to get drafted, whatever these things are, I could throw him out every now and then, but I said, it's probably going to bite us and you in the ass. So I would rather take him and be a really good defensive because and I explained, I said, most likely that's what he's going to be anyways.
Right.
You're not being Cale Makar.
Right.
So if he can hone that, make good first passes and that, he plays a great game and he gets his points, but on the power play,
right,
it's a disaster. He looks ugly.
Right. Okay.
And he appreciated it.
Yeah. So that was actually exactly what I wrote here. It's playing players to their strengths.
Yeah.
And this is where the it depends thing comes in again, because we're talking about the level of U16 going into their draft year or whatever, that around that age group. Okay. So that's another thing that you have to consider as parents, is maybe the coach sees your kid's strengths and weaknesses in a more clear light than you do, because you're mom and dad.
And he could be wrong, by the way.
And he could be wrong. Right. But regardless, this is what your coach thinks. He will have your kid's strengths and weaknesses lined up.
I don't know how a lid on a cup works. Anyways.
So he might have your kid pegged for certain strengths and certain weaknesses, and he's going to play those, whether you agree or not. And if you're mom and dad, sometimes you just have to deal with that. They think your kid should be in this role, and that's what they're going to plug. So that's one element. And the other element is maybe you don't exactly know your kid's strengths and weaknesses, because most people don't. Most players don't even know their strengths and weaknesses.
No.
So if you think your kid needs to get by more opportunity, that means he should be on the power play. Well, maybe it actually should be he's first unit on the penalty kill. Maybe that's actually where his strengths are, because at the U16 level, it's no longer so much focused on general development.
Yeah.
Now it's what you are when you're U16. This is a kind of the track you're going down for the player you're going to be.
Yeah.
So now you should be kind of honing in on what type of player you are. So at the U16 level, if you're a defensive style player, we're not going to be focusing a lot on developing your offensive capabilities, because that would be there by now.
Yeah.
There would be some light in that direction, you know. So where that might be different, and I want you to give your thoughts on this. What if it's a younger level now? So if
I was just going to say it.
So if it's not U16, if you're 10, now how does that change?
Now it's nothing.
Right.
So coaches that go nuts. Okay, but to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
I always have a philosophy that if you hire someone as a coach, or you choose to coach, that you are responsible to that organization to do your best, right? And whatever your philosophy is, development or winning or both, or a combination of both, it's whatever. But I think at the end of the day, when you talk to your kids and we say we want to win games, teach hockey and win games, teach them how to be competitive hockey players, there's this double-edged sword kind of. But for the most part, I would say in youth hockey in general, everybody gets a chance. And it's not fair stuff. It's just, it is what it is. You pay $2,000, I pay $2,000. We're on the same team. We're traveling to the same places. The cost is the same for all of us. Everyone should get an opportunity to do certain things, right?
Yeah.
So winning at all costs is not the most important thing.
Right.
Although, when it comes down to the last couple, maybe the last 10 or 7 minutes of a period, and it's a 2-2 game, and you have an opportunity and you have a power play, and it's to win, and maybe for those couple minutes or whatever, I'm not saying exact time.
Yeah.
We had coaches that say in the last 2 minutes the game's mine. I'm like, oh, that's stupid.
Yeah.
I play who I want.
Yeah.
But if you get a chance to put your best players on to work a power play or whatever, penalty kill, whatever it is, then so be it. It's one shift. And I know some parents and some kids, it's the end of the world. I get that. But there's a little bit of reality to it, and there's a
Yeah.
little bit, but for the most part, you're playing kids.
Right. So then,
You're learning how to be a hockey player.
so to be more specific, then let's go to when you coached Charlie's AA team when they were, what were they, 11?
They were 9 and 10.
Yeah. Okay. So 9 and 10. So if you're coaching a not even AAA, so you're coaching
Yeah.
a AA 9, 10-year-old team.
Yeah.
How did you do the who's on the power play, penalty kill, whatever? So was it something where it's like, okay, everyone gets a chance for the first 2 months, and then we're gonna kind of specify some roles later? Did you just roll the lines? What are your thoughts on at that level? What's more appropriate?
I more or less rolled the lines.
Power play, penalty kill, everything. Just
Yeah.
next guys go more or less.
More or
Unless
less.
you
And then,
got into
but
those crunch
there's
moments.
But here's the thing: there's a way to do it.
Right.
Like, I can put, let's say there's Charlie, Luke, and Cam, and it's a penalty kill, right? Well, it doesn't mean that Cam's the worst penalty killer, so he can't get the penalty kill at all.
Mhm.
But I can say Charlie and Luke go, and then then get Cam and the next guy in line on the next line. The last 30 seconds of it, or the last, you can still get them out there.
Yeah, that's right.
And they need to learn. So yeah, it would be mostly rolling lines, and then we got tighter into the playoffs. But here's my thing. I always did, and I believe this from the bottom of my heart. I don't care if the kid's 2. Well, that's exaggerating, but I don't care if the kid's how young they are. I have a responsibility to do a good job for you as a coach. Like, my responsibility is to give you the best experience. But your responsibility putting on the jersey for my team is to give me your best. So if Charlie is playing and he's not giving me his best that game, or he's taking penalties selfishly, or just going against everything, even if he is 9 years old, it's like, well, you don't really actually deserve to go out in a situation right now where it's a special spot,
Right.
because you're not actually giving me. So I would address that first, and if they don't, I'll say, well, it is what it is. You need to work hard. So that could be wrong, but that's something that I always say.
Yeah. Okay. So last thing, because I know I'm pulling you away from your notes.
Good.
So, 2 questions. One, at what level, at what age through youth hockey should you, let's say as parents, because normally they're the or even as a player, but whatever, parents more, because they're the ones that normally cause the stink about things.
Yeah.
At what point should you start to be more tolerant of more towards win than development? That's question 1. Question 2 is, if you're in a situation as mom and dad now where it's the development years, let's say I would put it as like 13 and under. If you're not getting that, if you have a coach that's not doing the fairness necessarily where we're rolling, whatever, what do you do in that kind of situation? So go with those 2, and then I'll let you go back to your notes.
What was the first one again? It was,
so if you're playing youth hockey, at what level should you start to be more okay with coaches going towards the winning and less towards the everyone gets a chance?
I think once you get to Bantam.
Yeah.
I think once you get to Bantam, but you can't be extreme, right?
No.
In youth hockey, there's only 3 lines. So there's not
you're
really...
going to play.
You're going to play.
Yeah.
You're going to play. So there's really, you're basically going to be either power play or penalty kill, or neither. But if there's neither, then I think you could probably realize that your son probably most of the times is the weakest link on the team.
Yeah.
So anyways.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But Bantam is when you start making these decisions, and you should expect that it's okay.
Okay. And then second part 2, if you're at a younger level and you're not getting the development stuff, if you're 9, 10, 11, 12, and you're not getting an opportunity to do power play, penalty kill type stuff, what do you do? Mom and dad, player, that kind of thing.
Yeah. On a certain age, you definitely can ask the coach.
Yep.
And just say, like, dude, it's the kid's 10. And if he has a philosophy that I need to win and all that stuff, I guess there's not much you can do. You have to be a good parent and get him through it. And that's my answer to that.
Yeah.
And then once you get to 12, 30, sometimes the coaches don't think you're worth it. But you can always go and talk to the coach, do it in the right framework.
Yep.
Right?
Yep, for sure.
Don't go at him with guns blazing.
Yeah, good. Okay, you go.
Another thing, as a parent watching the game, when you're looking at your kid maybe not getting ice, or they think when you're watching the game, like, sometimes players don't understand systems, but if you don't understand the systems, you don't actually understand what's going on the ice, right? So
totally, man. Okay, pause, because this was something I remember from my parents. never played hockey, so they have no idea what they're watching.
That's
They're
right.
doing. We talked last week about watching as a fan.
Yeah.
That's how
Yeah.
they watch hockey.
Yeah.
You can point things out to them and they'll notice, but they're not going into it with an understanding that there's a whole, like the way this team plays, you can't even see because you're not paying attention to the systems.
Yeah.
The O-zone, the forecheck, the neutral zone, the regroups, the controlled breakouts, all this stuff. They don't even know the words I just said. They don't even know what they are.
That's right.
You know, so that was a huge barrier, and that's definitely a huge barrier for a lot of parents if they haven't played hockey.
Yeah.
And it's not enough to just have played a sport at some point. It's like if you have not played high-level hockey, then you don't know what you're looking for. So your kid may or may not be doing those things, and you wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
You know? So
the perfect example of this would be on Charlie's youth team in Windsor. There's a kid on the team and a dad on the team. Like, it's a perfect example, parents and kid together, that this question applies to, or this statement applies to. Don't understand systems. So this kid worked like a dog. You can't outwork this guy. I would say in all the kids I've seen play youth hockey, this kid works hard, like hard. And I would say it to the guys, I go, like, no one works this hard. But he worked hard, but he didn't understand a system or how to play hockey for the life of him. And his parents, his dad would ask me sometimes, well, how come that? Because he was on Charlie's line for a little bit. Well, how come it's not working? And I couldn't say, but I said, I don't know, man. Like, maybe it just doesn't work. He would say, like, why don't they just do this? And it's like, holy crap, like, you don't have a clue. So mom and dad were getting frustrated. The kid would get frustrated because he was working so hard, but he would get rewarded in some instances because of his work ethic, but it would never be what he wanted or what he actually deserved in terms of how hard he worked.
Yep.
But when it came to systems, it was just like he worked hard and did nothing.
Right.
Or very, very little. So as a parent or as a player, and the kid couldn't see it. He just thought he was doing a great job. He'd back check as hard as he can, get in the way, and then maybe disrupt a play and take the puck the other way and end up in a corner. And nothing happened there. Then do that all game. So some of it was really good, and then most of it just amounted to a big pile of nothing.
Right.
So you, as a parent or as a player, you're going, but I'm working my ass off. I'm around the puck. I took the puck from this guy. You see good things, but you actually look at the game and say, okay, what plays did you make out of those? What actually should have happened? Yeah, you made a play there, but you disrupted something that your team was already doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
a note. I said this at the start. We're not going to say that you're going to ever understand necessarily, and this especially applies in the example you just gave, because parents won't ever understand systems because they're not learning the systems. Right. They're not in the dressing room for the meetings, for the video, they won't know that. So as mom and dad, it's very easy to get frustrated. I'm not saying this. It's easy to just block that out and be not frustrated, but try to keep in mind that you might just not know what's actually going on. Yep. So for mom and dad, like before, I always laugh when I'm around anyone when we're watching sports, any sports. Everyone does the sideline coaching. Yeah. And what I notice with myself is if I watch football, I know nothing about football. I don't know anything. When I would watch them run whatever plays they're running, like one thing I don't understand about football is why they run the ball so much to get 1 yard, 2 yard. Like, throw the ball, man. Yeah. And there's things.
So you think?
So I think.
Yeah.
I have no idea though.
Go farther.
Maybe it's a way less risk play. So maybe it's better to get 2, 3, 4 yards and then try to throw it for one, then throw every time when there's a chance for it to get picked or or what. Maybe that's the reason. I don't know.
You're speaking ignorantly.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So it's like, but this is the same framework you bring to hockey when you're watching hockey. Yeah. I never say while I'm watching the game, well, they should do this. Like, they should do this. But when you're around people who are just sports fans, they do that all the time. They do the sideline coaching or the bench coaching or whatever. Like, I can't believe the Leafs won't do this, or why do they keep this guy on the power play, or as if they know. Yeah. And it's just, you don't know. So try the best you can. That will help with your frustration if you can just understand. Maybe you just don't get it, and that's okay that you don't get it. Now, if you're a player and you're maybe in that position where you feel like you're not getting opportunity, or you're maybe not working in the system the right way, or maybe you don't even know that. Maybe you just can feel that something's not clicking. Go and ask questions, man. Go and ask questions. And even if you don't know what to ask, just ask them what they think.
Yeah.
And they'll give you some things. Like your coach will give, it doesn't matter what level you're at, your coach will give you some things that they think you're doing or not doing. So for this guy, if he doesn't understand systems and he feels he's frustrated and because his parents are frustrated and you can tell there's some level of frustration, go to the coach as the player and say, what am I missing here? Because if they say, dude, you don't know how to do a controlled breakout, or you keep getting in the way of our defensive system because you're running around.
Yeah.
It's great that you work hard, but you're actually being disruptive to the system because you're not staying where you're supposed to stay.
You're doing everything. Four other guys don't know what the hell is going on.
Exactly. And it causes confusion and chaos, especially if it's something like D-zone, for example.
Yeah.
And that was something my dad used to say to me is, dude, just go get the puck.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't go get the puck. I'm supposed to be here.
Yeah.
I can't just leave.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, if you get the puck, then nobody cares. It's like, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, my son in the early part of this year would ask me a couple questions, right? Like, how do you think I played? Right? He wants to know.
Yep.
So I said, well, I feel you did really well. But, and I'm not saying this that you did something wrong. I just, and this is how I qualify it, because I don't know his coach's systems yet. I have an idea.
Yeah. What's the expectation?
Right.
Yeah.
So I said, like, on this particular time, I saw like a few times you were, let's say, chasing a guy behind the net, and I felt like it was an easy thing not to do. Because no, coach said that's, and he gave me the reasons. I said, okay, yeah, makes total sense now. Like, now I get it, because everyone does the exact same thing, and I was asking, the guy's dumb, or is that?
Yeah.
He goes, no, this is how, and this is why. I said, good. I said, I can't argue, so go do that. And once you understand. And I have the ability to understand when Charlie says something to me. Oh, okay, that makes sense then, because it's not opposite, but a little bit different than the way I would coach a team.
Yep.
So that doesn't make me right. Doesn't make me wrong. Just that's how.
Yeah, maybe you just don't see it.
So my son does that, and I said, okay, now in context of how you played, good. Or in context of all the stuff I know, you need to be better here. But I'm not the coach anymore. But I let the coach do that thing, and I trust him.
Oh, and you're careful not to just jump in with your advice because you don't know. Like
that's right.
behind the net thing is that's such an easy one because most people would say you never chase behind the net.
Right.
It's like, well, actually, if they get into a set, a lot of teams are doing that drop back pass or whatever.
Yeah.
So maybe it's good to be coming up from behind when they're trying to do a drop back because now you're in the way or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, whatever George's reasons are, they are
things you don't think of.
And it seems to work.
Yeah.
Who the hell am I?
Yeah, that's right.
And whatever. So yeah. So just real quick, players may not see the little things that earns a player's ice. Okay, we kind of said that earlier about, so I will skip over that. And then the last thing, just kind of what we kind of matches what we just said is, I'm going to ask a parent and coach, I mean a parent and a player, how much video they watch outside of the game they just played.
Yeah.
And the answer on the game that they played on their team is probably 0 or every now and then. Now, and if you are a parent that watched the video, you're probably watching it to see how your kid did, 100%. Because when I watched the Guelph Storm play, once I've seen the game or if I'm watching it live, what I'm looking for is when my son's coming out, because that's when I'm going to really get into it. Like I love the team, but I really want my son to have the best game ever. Period. Sorry, guys.
Sure.
Right? So coaches watch video. And they come up with their own conclusions. So even in youth hockey, I'm not saying every coach does, but probably a little bit because it's available. So even if you watch a game, one game that you played and you review it, looking for a couple things, you've probably watched more hockey and know the team better, and you know the personnel on the bench better than any parent, and that includes the players. So once you get to higher levels, as I've said before, a coach will watch how many games a week? Like it could be upwards to 20 games a week when you say you're pre-scout, review your game, the pre-scout for the next game, you're scouting. You might watch just penalty kills and stuff. They actually study the game so they have a good idea. So that's why a lot of the questions a player and a parent would ask, why isn't this not happening, is because you're at a total disconnect of what the coach is at. Yeah. Right.
Well, do you want to plug that? I wanted you to tell that story later about.
Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Because I think it makes sense to go right now.
Yeah. So one of our players, I was having a conversation about his son that plays in the OHL.
Talk with the dad.
Yeah. And he goes, I don't know. He goes, I thought my boy played not very good. He goes, I didn't think the team played very well. I think my son played okay, but the team was just awful. He goes, but then he went in the dressing room and the post game comments was how happy he was how the team played. He goes, they did this and this and this exactly the way I want it. The pucks just didn't go our way or whatever. And he goes, well, that goes to show you how much I know.
Yeah.
He goes, well, I saw the game one way and I was like, well, that was horrible. And the coach saw it another way and he was actually happy, but we lost. But you guys played a great game. He goes, so what do I know?
Yeah. Well, the cool thing about that, we've talked about this before, like the stats and analytics of the game and how serious, especially at the higher levels, how much that's taken. Like even junior B, like they all have Instat now where they have like every single thing every player does, how many shots, how many minutes, how long they had the puck, like all this kind of stuff.
Yep.
You don't see that and none of that as a parent. So if you say, oh, I watched the game and it looked terrible, but then the coach has all the stats and the breakdown of the game and it's like, oh, we actually had the puck more than the other team did.
Yeah.
And we had 2 minutes more offensive zone time than last game and whatever. We didn't take any penalties and we had 16 shot blocks instead of 5 last game. These are all metrics where it looks like we played a much better game and you didn't even notice because you're just surface watching the play, you know? So that's another thing that goes hand in hand with the video thing you were mentioning, because these coaches, especially at the higher levels, like they're prepared, man. They're prepared way beyond what you can understand and they're paying attention to stats, analytics, and things that you're not even tracking. You're not even aware that these are things that matter in the game. Like how many times did this guy win the right side defensive zone face-off? Like no parent knows that.
They know like when he does have possession where the puck ends up. So if it ends up in the deep in the corner and nothing comes out of it, it's like you're actually not very good.
That's right. Yeah.
You have to make shit happen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
So good point.
Yeah. So going back to the questions, like we're gonna go through a couple of these real quick. So the question about mixing lines up, why the coaches always mix the lines up. Well, let's go youth hockey first. Okay, there might be a lot of reasons for that, and it's actually in youth hockey a good thing to play with other people. So a lot of people get really hung up. Like I couldn't even tell you, like when my son was going through youth hockey, how many times people say they're always mixing the lines up.
Yeah.
Like why are they mixing the lines up when they like? Okay, so everybody wants to play with the top dog, so and that's okay, because and what happens is, as a coach, you might say, okay, let's try it. Well, that didn't work out for your son too well, did it? Because maybe he can't play with this guy, but and then maybe it does work. So you'll never know unless you try in youth hockey. And I think everybody should have an opportunity. You might have a guy that, let's say, is a really offensive player that puts a lot of points. And you might have another guy that hasn't scored a goal in the last 6 months or 4 months. Well, maybe it's a game like I want to get his confidence back. Let's get him on this guy's line. And all of a sudden he puts a puck in there, he has a real good game, feels good about himself. Like there's the psychological reasons. There's a lot of things like that why you might do it. And then in youth hockey, it's just, you should play with all the guys. You should actually know what it's like to play with, let's say a number 1 guy should know what it's like to play with a number 9 guy and vice versa. It's actually really good. Learn how to play your off wing, learn how to play center. It's okay. Minor hockey, it's okay. Now, when you get to junior, and I have this question. I had this question about not necessarily, because people think you got to get used to playing with the guys all the time, and that might be true sometimes. Like Gretzky and Yari Curry, that was magic, and then another guy on the wing would be like, has got to complement them. But Gretzky Curry works. Lemieux and Jagger, that seemed to work. Ovechkin, Marner Matthews seems to work. But like the third guy, maybe not so much. Anyways, you will always be playing with different players, and it'll be juggled. So you're playing now. We get to the OHL or pro level or college level. Now a coach is coaching to win hockey games, so he doesn't really have a lot of empathy for who you're playing with. You're playing. Now there's different ways that some guys do it, and there's some that I don't really get, and some that I do. Like for me, when I coach mixing up lines, this would be my thing. I would have like let's say in junior pro, I would have my top 3 lines I got 4 lines. I don't care really who you are, but if you're not, like say you're a number 1 guy and you're just not going. I have no problem taking a guy, moving him up a line, maybe even a lower, like the 4th line guy, and moving him up and saying, okay, you take a couple shifts to figure it out. And if he does, and if he comes back and responds good, that worked. And if he doesn't, well, then someone else should actually be playing, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
If you're
That's
dogging
your coaching style.
if I'm dogging it. Some guys will take 2 lines, 3 lines, and they'll just take those 6, 9 guys and just mix them up, and they'll never let the 4th line move up. Is it right or wrong? I don't know. That's a philosophy. But this guy's trying to win and develop players for the future. The other side of this thing is that once you get to the junior pro college level, or not parents, when you get to the junior level, is you don't have any, well, actually pro too. You have no idea the pressure coaches and GMs get from, not parents anymore. The parents still try, but agents. So now you got to look at this kind of stuff. If on my team or over the last 5 years, you're running your organization, and you've got 5 or 6 of my players on your team, kind of every year, and deals like I make sure that things work out for both of us. All of a sudden, you start pissing around with my players, right? A top dog, and you start treating them the way that I don't want him to be treated, or he doesn't like to be treated. Well, we have an issue. Who should win this battle should be the coach,
right?
Because he needs to play the top dogs. But a lot of the times, the agents are such a pain in the ass, and that, well, if you don't have him, well, then this guy's not reporting next year. Or you could draft one of my first round guys that's going to college, I'm not letting them come, or vice versa. So there is other pressures and there's other issues besides just within the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure some guys cave to it and some guys don't give a rip, but it is a pressure.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So it's the incentive ends up being, regardless of what level you're at, the incentive ends up being to mix the lines up as the coach. Because if you're in those young years, it's so that everyone plays with everyone kind of thing. And we're not trying to keep, set lines and set roles or anything. Then as you get older, the incentives are to win. So if your kid doesn't feel like having a good game today, I don't have time to wait for him to get going.
That's right.
I need somebody who's going to go. So the incentive is always going to be to change up the lines. Now, some coaches have more patience than others. Like to me, I'm of the belief, and most people have this with special teams, which is interesting. They don't have it for 5-on-5, but they have it for special teams. We keep the power play together even if it's not going.
Yeah.
But 5-on-5, we shuffle the lines up.
Yeah.
Right? But when you're going into the power play now, the incentive is to keep the guys together because these are probably your horses.
Yeah.
These are probably the guys that will be the ones to get the job done most of the time, most likely on the team. So are you going to shuffle the power play all the time? No. Are you going to shuffle the 5-on-5? Yes, because the 5-on-5 is where you can make the little differences in the game. So if you're having a sleepy game, I don't have time to wait for you to get going.
Yeah.
Power play, you have a little extra time and space, and maybe you're one of the top guys, so I have more patience for you to get going in that domain kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So as the people watching hockey, understand that is the incentive for the coach always. The incentive always ends up being to change the lines if something isn't working. It's never to wait and see, Yeah. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So that was the next piece, is talking about the power play, because that was one of the questions. Why do they always keep the power play together?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say youth hockey, because that's a tougher one to swallow.
Yeah.
The bottom line is the power play. If you have a power play unit at Bantam Midget, it's probably because they're probably your most offensive players, or the system players that understand, okay, there's a bumper guy. That bumper guy has this job to do. He's not necessarily going to score. He needs to just touch the puck around, or a tip guy. So not everybody could stand there and tip pucks.
Yep.
Not everybody could be a bumper guy. Not everybody could be the quarterback. Not everybody could be the setup guy, right? Or the shooter. So you have to identify guys. So when you're young, that shouldn't be an issue. As you get to Bantam and Midget, it becomes a thing. And guess what? It might seem like it's not working, if it once did, because some coaches don't even know how to do one. But it might seem like it's not working for a game or 2 or 3. And you might say, and it's a legit question, that if you gave someone a chance, because I've seen it happen. You gave me one chance at the power play, or on Charlie's team, it was the same thing as a youth. I got one chance, I scored. It's okay, so it worked once. So if I took that kid percentage-wise and put him on the ice for 7 out of 10 power plays, that's probably, he might get another one, but the numbers are not going to be in his favor.
Yep.
You're going to have your best opportunity with your best players that do this consistently, because there's times where power plays are just dry.
Yep.
Right? So you have to kind of let them work themselves in. There's a great argument It's not working. Put someone else in, but you kind of work the bugs out. And do I agree with it all the time? No, but when someone's coaching and they're making a living and their decisions are dependent on someone or making a living, like getting fired or not, they're making the best decisions.
Yeah.
So there's a reason that they keep that together. Basically every team for years and years and years.
Yep.
So
I got 2 quick ones on that. So for power play, you were talking about having a bumper guy and a net front guy and all that kind of stuff, and how you said not everybody can do that job, right? So if you're a kid that is, let's say you're the second most offensive kid on the team as a forward, for example. So normally that would end up being like your guy that's on the half wall, maybe not, but let's say it's a guy that's on the half wall or up towards the point so they can control the puck a little bit more. If you're the second guy, the second best on your team, well, that means there's one guy better than you that's going to have that position on the first unit.
Yeah.
If you're not good at being bumper, then just because you're the second best offensive guy with the puck doesn't mean you should be in the bumper spot now on the first power play, because that might just not work.
That might not be. Maybe you pass like shit.
That's right. Or maybe down low when you're not great when the D flex out to pressure you.
Yeah.
So the spot you should be in is in that top of the key kind of role where you get to control the puck a little bit more, but there's somebody on our team that's better than you at that. So that means you're going to be on the second power play unit in that spot, but now you don't have necessarily as good of a net front bumper guy. So now you're getting frustrated because if I was just with the better players, then I would have more opportunity on the power play and do more and whatever. Yeah. But you can't just play in whichever role, or you don't have a good shot. I can't put you on the point for a one-timer if you can't take a shot kind of thing, right?
Well, and this goes back to what we were saying about putting people in where their strength is. Yeah. So when I was coaching a really good team, one of the dads had a really good offensive fast player. And a lot of the times when he penalty killed properly, he was really good. But that would only happen 50% of the time because he was so offensive. He wanted to have the little sneak plays and cheat, right? Stick check and try to poke it by, and then we'd be in our own end. But his dad was like, I don't know why you don't put him on the power or the penalty kill all the time, because he always scores on the power play. He gets up, he gets out, he figures out how to get out high, and he gets those breakaways. And I go, yeah, that's a real great way to kill a penalty, is look for breakaways.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the disconnect between dad, like that's looking through your kid's eyes and what's best for him. Mm-hmm. But even though it's not the best for him, because he's looking at how his son could get more goals, me as a coach was looking at how we kill penalties properly. And if you get a goal out of it, that's great. Right. But then this service he was doing his son by saying this was, would you like him to get another 5 goals on the penalty kill this year, or would you like him to be a good hockey player that can move on to the next level? Because if he penalty kills like that, he's not going to get one shift. Mm-hmm. In fact, he'll probably get undressed. You have to do your job first. So, anyways,
so last point on the peeper for me is you were touching on the percentages kind of thing. Yeah. And here's maybe an interesting way to think about the power play. If you have a fantastic power play, what's the percentage normally?
So it's like 30,
25.
Yeah, the 30 is very good.
That's like you're probably the best. If you have a 30% power play, you're probably the best in the league. Yeah. So that means 70% of the time you won't score.
That's right.
So that means your power play looks like it's not working. Yeah. But it is working. Yeah. If you have the best power play in the league, you're still only getting 30% of the time where you're scoring a goal. You know? So if you think that every power play, the puck should be zipping around and you should be getting all kinds of chances, normally that's not the case. It's very hard to do. To score on the power play, it is very hard to do by the percentage. You will never see a team that's over 30%. Yeah. Barely ever. Barely. And if they do, it's for a small period of time and then they're back under 30. Yeah. So keep that in mind too. And you're thinking the power play sucks or it's not clicking or whatever. If you look at the whole year, even in minor hockey, look at the whole year. What's the percentage on the power play for the whole year with this power play unit? If it's somewhere between 20 and 30%, that's a good power play. Yeah. It's not a bad power play. Yeah, so it's easy to think because they didn't score this game or they didn't score in 2 games that it's not working. Yeah. But really they're at 25% power play. They're actually pretty good together, you know? So that's 100%. Another way to think about it. Great point.
The other one was why do coaches say things they don't mean?
Yeah.
Here's one of the things.
That's a good one.
And especially in youth hockey. I don't know, maybe even especially in junior, in pro. I think sometimes a lot of people just have a hard time being 100% honest. Not honest. That's the wrong word. 100% honest. No, but if you're talking to a kid and a parent, and you're saying that you just keep working hard. It's coming. You're doing a good job, but you don't really mean it. It could be because maybe the player's not at the level that he needs to be at, and it's hard to say you're just not good enough, especially in youth.
Yeah.
In junior and pro, I think it's a lot more. I think it's a lot easier to be honest because I think people expect it. But it's kind of just the nature of the beast, like things change too, right? You could be putting together a team that, you think you have one thing and you tell the player, you know what, it's going to take this much time before you're ready. And, you're going to have more opportunity. We're going to get you on the power play, I think, or you're going to move up to the second line. And then over the course of a month or two, the team's going a different direction. It's maybe better than what they thought, or someone else was better than they thought. And it turns out that you don't get that opportunity. When you don't get that opportunity, it doesn't necessarily mean that the coach lied to you,
Right.
or he didn't mean what he said. It's just maybe circumstances changed.
Right.
And that's something that you always have to remember.
Yeah. So the first part of that was you always say put some velvet on the sledgehammer kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So if you're a coach talking to player parent and you're doing that, there's a hint of something that's more blunt and honest about what the truth is that they're kind of keeping from you.
Yeah.
So that might give you a false impression about what the coach actually meant.
Yeah.
On top of sometimes coaches just have a hard time being truthful and completely honest with what's going on because they don't want to hurt your feelings or they don't want to make you feel like you want to quit or those kind of things. And it's a hard thing to do. Like you got to cut the coaches some slack too because they got however many guys on their team that they have to send the same message to. Yeah. So that's the first thing. And then the other thing I want to highlight there is you're talking about sometimes there's unexpected things that happen that a coach has to deal with. So if a coach says something to you, but then like you said, he's having that same conversation that he's having with you with 5-6 other kids on the team. Yeah. And then what if all of a sudden that kid just starts going more than you?
Yep.
And now it's like, okay, well, I'm equally concerned with this kid and where his trajectory is going as I am with yours. It's not just about you. So this question in particular is probably where it's most important to try to get outside of your own window of what's happening with just you and understand if you're going to talk to your coach, there's probably 5, 6, 10, 12 other guys on your team that also go and talk to your coach and are trying to get their own what they need addressed kind of thing, right? So, and the coach has to try to deal with all that and juggle all that. So, and sometimes you're going to be on the benefiting end of that, and sometimes you're going to get the shit end of the stick on that because you can't please everybody all the time. There's too many people kind of thing, Yeah,
there's too many people. And you could also, coach could say, sort of promise you things, but if your game doesn't get better or if it actually goes down, then that promise doesn't really hold water.
Yep.
But the crude thing about it is or the cruel thing about it or whatever, you got to callous yourself a little bit. And I would always say that don't really listen to what your coach says. I don't mean don't listen to the instruction, but I'm saying it really can't matter if a coach says you're the best player in the world or I hate your guts or promise or whatever. The bottom line is it's irrelevant because you got to realize that in life, people are going to tell you what you want to hear a lot of the times. What people say doesn't really matter. Like you got to really understand that. Yeah. It's all you can do as a hockey player, and we've said this a million times, is you just have to go play. When you talk to your coaches in any situation, you try to get them. So I was saying to the one guy that's going through a tough time right now, I said, you need to go get instruction from your coach. I need you to say, Coach, I need to fix it, and I think you agree. What do I need to do? Work harder is not the answer. The generic stuff's not the answer. I said you need to be as clear and concise and specific to what you need to work on so I can work on it, right? And that's so when you do talk to your coach, you don't want fluff conversations. You want clear, concise, this is what I need from you, because it's all that matters. Like at the end of the day, coach might like you as a human. Coach might not like you as a human. He might feel for you, might not. But at the end of the day, all that the coach actually cares about is that you're not ruining the team and his name, reputation, so you're good off the ice that way, but that you perform. That's it.
Yep.
That's it. That I can use you on the ice. So what they say doesn't mean a whole lot, and it never will.
Yeah. The way that and this is not just a hockey thing, it's a anything thing. If you're have to go talk to your boss or your coach or your whoever, you always go in and expect that the worst thing is going to happen, because then you're prepared. Then you're not getting blindsided by a false promise where you're expecting I'm going to be on the power play tomorrow, but you're not now, so you can be hopeful. Like, you can hope what they're saying is true and that you'll get the opportunity that they're saying and all that kind of stuff. But you should always, to prepare yourself, the best way to do that is always be ready or as ready as you can be for the worst. So be ready to get scratched next game if you know that you had a bad game, expect that. Don't expect the best. If you expect the best, there's a lot of room to fall off the cliff there.
Yeah. That's where your disappointment comes.
So just expect that. So then you're not getting into that cycle, because coaches do this. Coaches have to talk to everybody, and they're going to say whatever they're going to say and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's all I got on that.
The last one was why do guys keep getting opportunities? And it's kind of like the power play thing, but it's a little bit different. The bottom line is, guys if you recognize that some guys just keep getting the opportunities in youth hockey. Can't really explain it, but that to me it means that they just think that someone's better than you. That's bottom line. So you have to do something to get to that level. And in junior hockey, it's the same thing. It's probably because the coach thinks that the guys getting opportunities deserve the opportunities because they're better. Now, there's some philosophies where some coaches don't give you an opportunity, and I've never understood it. Like I'm not even talking OHL, college, or pro. I'm talking like even junior B in tier 2. Sometimes people say, well, he's too young. I don't like the argument. You're just too young. It doesn't make sense. What if you're playing better than someone? But sometimes that's just the way it is. Older guys get opportunities. They trust them. They lean on them. And sometimes it's because their job depends on, if I was to lose my job as a coach because I took, let's say I didn't make the playoffs and I started rolling my bottom players more than the average guy, and it actually cost me a playoff spot and I lost my job, that's on me. If I think a lot of guys, if they're going to go down, they're going down with their best players that we signed. Yeah. Like, or if you're just a coach and you have a GM, it's like, well, you gave me these players, and like I'm going to play the guys the horses that you gave me, right? So, anyways, that's it. So sometimes is it fair or not? Don't know. Doesn't matter. Your time or making yourself a better player will give you more opportunity.
Yeah, especially at higher levels too. It's not just the coach's choice, Yeah. So it's like if you're the GM of a team and you drafted certain players, or you traded for certain players, or you signed certain players for a certain purpose, and then you go to your coach and say, here are your players. If me as the coach, if I don't put those players where they were supposed to be, that could cause a problem now with my GM. So if you're the young guy on the team and you're expecting to get any extra opportunity, you won't unless you blow the doors off. If you blow the doors off, then you'll pass somebody. They'll skip you ahead. But this is where it goes back to what I was saying earlier. Just because maybe you scored a goal in one game or you played a good game or whatever, that doesn't mean you won't get scratched next game because you're one of the bottom end guys. And that's a philosophy thing as a coach. Some coaches do that and some coaches don't. But to your point, if you're going to go down as a coach, you're going to go down with your horses. That doesn't mean it's always right necessarily, but that's a very common philosophy that you're going to find, especially as you get to the older ages, because they always say that you're too young, you have time. And one thing that I thought about because we were talking about this episode, and I was just kind of trying to understand myself, like why a coach might roll the lines the way they do or whatever. And one thing I was saying is that if you're a young player and you're not experienced in the league, one thing is you're just more likely to make mistakes
100%.
because you haven't been in those situations. So if you're a coach that says, okay, he had one good game, let's toss him up and give him regular shift no matter what. Yeah. It's like that kid's more likely to throw a pizza up the middle than 100%. The kid that's already played for 2 years, So now it's just a percentage thing, like you said before. If you're a kid that isn't as experienced, you're just more likely to cost me.
Well, so I would just use this for an example. 2 areas where I see my son this year in the OHL after about 30, I think 40 games. 2 drastic improvements from the beginning of the year. One is he's a winger, getting the puck off the wall and exiting. That might seem like, well, that's not. No. This is huge. Because at this level, guys are pinching a lot harder. It's a lot faster. So you learn a panic threshold. So how did he get better at the exits? He spent a lot of time working on it, right? And for me, it's dramatically different. And it wasn't terrible. It wasn't bad at the beginning, but it would be like, some of them would be like, oh God, you got to get that out.
You're
Like,
nervous when they get it.
Yeah, son, if you want to play, you can't bobble that one. You can't, this is where you're going to get your ice. And he spent time. And now when I watch, I'm very, very confident that he can do it. So just in 40 games in the OHL, and I'm not talking 20 shifts a game. I'm talking some games 5-6 shifts. So some shifts he's never in that situation, but it's the work, the practice, the experience in 40 games that has made him so much better at doing that one thing.
Yeah, I noticed that too, for sure.
Yeah. The second thing that I've noticed a huge difference in is when he's entering now, like in the offensive zone. And this is, I would say, like the huge improvement came in the last 10 games. Now he's making, because he's worked on it. He's able to get over the blue line and just make nice little slip plays, like slip in it, making nice little short passes that are very, very productive, and it's dramatically different. So if and when I do sit down with him, and he we talk about the season, when you talk about ice time, if he was as good as he is now in his own end and those entries at the beginning of the year, the coach may have actually put him out there more. Probably not, but the difference is huge. Yep. So when I think of next year and the third year and the fourth year in the OHL, wow, that's going to be a whole different player. And he wasn't bad at the beginning, but now you can count on him.
Yep.
So now if I take a kid that goes, let's say it's a first round pick, second overall in the OHL, and a right winger going to the Guelph Storm, I can guarantee you that kid will not be as good as my kid with 1 year experience. Right. Not a chance.
That's right.
So he's not getting that ice.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. And when you say not good, it's in the subtle ways. Because if this kid's just a stud that can skate through and do the highlight reel, that's fine, but that's not playing hockey, right? It's those subtle things that you don't pay attention to, and this is what people miss. Yeah. Even at minor hockey level, they miss this. Sometimes a guy on your team, he's just really good at picking the puck up off the wall and making sure it's out of our end every time, and you didn't even notice that as mom and dad, like how important that actually is, because that's where all the turnovers happen, right there. You know, so if you can be reliable and get those pucks out, that's such a great skill to have. You know, so it's a good example for people to keep in mind for sure. Yeah, so that's all I kind of got. I just wrote this down. Don't know exactly what it means. Sometimes in minor hockey, coaches lack a lot, like actual hockey knowledge in youth hockey. I think I said that because sometimes as a parent, you can sit there and wonder what the hell is going on. They don't know what they're doing. Or players can say that too. They don't know what they're doing, and it's very true a lot of the times. Yeah, sometimes you could be right. Yeah,
a lot of times, it's hard to get a good coach actually. Yep. So sometimes you'll discuss things or wonder things, and it's like, well, he doesn't know. Yeah, well, that was definitely true for me. Yeah, like I had my first good coach was after my draft year. That's right. Like, me too. That's nuts. Well, Mr. Rose was good as a skills guy and good for me. Yeah, but in terms of hockey knowledge, like my first one was after draft year, which is crazy. Yeah. So, and that's just, you got to deal with it, man. You just have to deal. Your coach doesn't know anything. Just go play hard. Yeah. So I got just one thing to finish, and then unless you got anything else. No, go. So the last thing I was going to say is just kind of pointing at the coaches now. Yeah. Is because I remember being a player and for my parents and stuff, and these are common questions that everybody has all the time. So as a coach, it's very important, if you can, do your best. And at higher levels, they have less incentive to care about doing this, but I still think it's important. It would be better if they did this, is you have to try to communicate what your philosophy is to your players. Like set the tone at the start of the season, how you coach, what your philosophy is, what your expectations are in general. Yep. So that people have an idea when things are happening through the season, why things are going on the way they're going on. If you never do that, and this is to your point, some coaches just don't do that. Like some coaches actually don't have a philosophy, or they don't have a plan, or they don't know how they're going to do things in a certain situation. 100%. So it comes off like chaos because it is. They actually just don't know what they're doing. Sure. But if you're going to coach minor hockey, especially, I'm talking more to them now because they can actually make a pretty good impact. Yeah. Get yourself prepared, obviously, number one, but then try to communicate how you're going to coach and what your style is after that, because that can help to address a lot of these questions right at the start of the season, because like the hostility and the frustration that can happen, especially among parents, you can control some of that. Here's a stupid example that happened to me the other day. I had somebody email me about a camp that they signed up for, and I said that they can't come because it's only for competitive players, and they were mad at me
because their kid couldn't come. And I said, well, it says on the
Tells you what
sign
it
up
is.
and in the marketing what it's for.
Yeah.
And he didn't read it. So then he went and read it and he was like, oh, and then he wasn't mad anymore because he missed it. Right. So it's like, but you can eliminate a lot of, that's just an example of, you can eliminate a lot of frustration if that message is communicated right away. It'll de-escalate and deflate all that tension that you can build up. If you tell people what your plan is and what you're going to do, because now they can say, okay, well, he said at the start of the year, if you're not going, I'm sitting you or whatever, you know? So,
or vice versa. Like, it doesn't matter if we win, lose, if you're playing well or not, everyone gets to play.
Yeah. You know,
like whatever the philosophy is the philosophy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's it. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Anything else for you?
No, I'm good. I think we're good.
Good. Okay. If anybody's got any follow up on that, let us know. See you next week.